It's going online shortly. Hi everyone, welcome to Coffee with Mr. IoT. Good morning to the people on West Coast. It's 9 a.m. We do this weekly. Hello to the people on the East Coast, and good evening or buenos aires to people who are in Italy like me. I happen to be on vacation, but I could be here today with Dave Rosner and Rachel Mohrmann. And with that, I wanted to say hi, Dave. Hi, Rachel. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, Rob.
And why don't you guys start introducing yourself? Rachel, ladies first. How about that?
Sure. So my name's Rachel Mohrmann. I'm a manager with Deloitte Consulting, and I spend my time working on life sciences IoT.
Hi, and I'm Dave Rosner. I lead our digital health practice within Deloitte, so I focus on all things digital related to life sciences across the value chain, whether it's R&D or commercial or supply chain, and work with my clients on how to figure out how digital and digital technologies enable patient engagement, working with different stakeholders, HCPs and institutions, as well as optimizing trials and research and development.
Thanks, guys. Welcome. So we do this show every week. We want to talk a little bit about IoT. I'm actually curious, how does IoT affect you guys personally outside of work? How do you see it? What happens? And you know, what got you inspired to work with IoT in your work life?
Dave, you go first.
Yeah, well, it's a timely question because I'm on a mission to smart things enable everything in my house, and every week I have a different project of trying to take the most obscure thing in my house and automate it with smart things. So
like what?
Right now I'm automating my pool, and I've written custom Groovy code to automate the blinds in my media room to come down at a certain time of the day, depending on the season of the year.
What does Groovy code consist of?
It's as far as I can tell, some kind of Java type of language. I don't know, actually. All I know is that's how smart things work, so I just follow the pattern.
That's awesome. Do you have an Echo yet, Dave?
No, I'm contemplating that. I'm not there yet.
Okay, fair enough.
Rachel, what's an Echo? Do you want to talk about an Echo for a second so people who don't know what an Echo is can actually get on the bandwagon?
Sure. I don't even know how to describe it really, though, because it's everything. So the Echo is basically a voice command center that can enable anything and can act as your personal assistant. So everything from asking it questions and it responding real time to doing, setting off different things in your automated home. So if you have a connected home, asking it to play Mozart, and it turning on your stereo system because it's already connected to that, and playing your favorite classical album. But really for now, I just use it as a pure toy, but I just learned at IoT World this last week that there's a great code website, a WYSIWYG if-then statement website where you can actually build your own if-then statements and have it command everything in your house. So that's going to be my weekend project or hobby or playtime, I should say.
Do you know how you address Echo? You know, for Google, you say, "Okay, Google," to start it to listen to you. For iPhone, Apple, you say Siri. That's the name. Do you know what Echo's name is?
Are you asking me?
Either.
It's Alexa, right?
Robert. Alexa.
So, Rachel, coming back to my question from before, what got you inspired to work on IoT? What did get you inspired to work on IoT, and how does that affect you in healthcare and life sciences?
Sure. So I was working at a company that does a lot with eye care, and they were working with Google. It's all public now, I think. Novartis was working with Google to do the first implantable lens to basically be able to identify for diabetes patient your glucose levels without the infamous prick. And it was really an eye-opener for me, no pun intended, that we could change how people take control of their disease state, how they can actually completely disrupt how we do medicine today with technologies that are right here now. So it's not, you know, sci-fi crazy Minority Report. It's here right now, and the medicine and healthcare industry has prime opportunities to get disrupted and change so many of the ways and processes and how we do things today. So that's what got me excited, and that excitement just continues to build every week. So hopefully that answers your simple question.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So I worked in the medical industry and found that at times there is a lag of technology really in the medical industry.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if it has changed. Generally has really advanced. We have a new generation not grown up with technology and so forth. How do you see IoT? How fast is it going to take effect? And maybe then you can talk a little bit about Patient 360, our demo that we've built for a variety of different people. I don't know, Dave, you want to take it first?
Okay, I heard about half of that, Robert. I'm sorry. Rachel, did you catch it?
Yeah, so I think what Robert was asking is our industry tends to be a little bit slower paced, and how do we see that? Is that still the case? Is that affecting it, and what are we seeing now in this space?
Yeah, I mean, in some places we're conservative and slow in its early days, but there's other areas where I think we're out there. I think in life sciences, right? If we talk about pharmaceutical makers and medical device technology companies, I think the challenge is what utility can they bring to the table through digital or IoT or in general beyond their therapies themselves, and that's a big question. Basic patient and doctor type interactions, adherence-based technologies or things to drive adherence, that's pretty far along. I think the utility and the effectiveness and just the adoption of that has been pretty low, and companies recognize that. I think trying to start to deploy more sophisticated technologies or sensors or other software medical devices to go beyond adherence, to start tracking outcomes or using it in other ways, I think that's what is emerging. But it's going to take some time. And at the end of the day, the utility and value will drive the investments, and the adoption as well. There's lots of famous examples of pharmaceutical companies and other healthcare companies deploying technologies that really fall more in a consumer domain, and they've gotten little adoption. So I think there's some carefulness by the pharma and the medtech companies in the space, because they've got to figure out where they can add value and how they add value through this.
I think you bring up a good point, Dave, which is the risk aversion of this industry is, I think, a huge driver into why they're a little bit slower to adopt. And in speaking at IoT World this last week with one of our practice leaders, Andy Decker, we talked about why is this industry going a little bit slower, and what can they do on the safer side. And one of the areas I think we're seeing, Robert, is on the patient connect side. So new ways to outreach, to interact with patients in meaningful ways and drive better care and really enable the patient to take care of their disease state. And it's something that's less risk likely, because you're really just adding basic tech to your care and giving patients a new way without necessarily having to go through trials or any of the regulatory compliance pieces. But I will say, out of that session, we learned that there's several large pharma companies doing really cool things in the clinical trial space that's got me super excited, and I think that's where this industry needs to go and needs to change things, even though obviously government regulations, compliance, risk, all that come into play at a big, huge time.
Yeah. No, I think the conservativeness is slowing us down for sure. There's a ton of opportunity both internally, from an operational efficiency, but also from a patient engagement, as we talk about, and then even how you run the trials. Bridging a gap from self-reported data during a trial and solving for that with actual sensors and wearables. That's going to be a big win when it comes about.
Absolutely.
Rachel, you talked about some really cool things you saw at IoT World from the pharma companies. Why don't you share some with us, for the ones you can?
Yeah, so I think in Wysok and I had some really cool meetings. A colleague of mine, had some cool meetings with some people and just learning a lot about how they're thinking about really using the technology that's there today, and that's a big point I want to drive home. Is it's not something futuristic. It's like the stuff right here, right now. How do we use that today to better drive capabilities? So one thing pharma companies are not talking about, which surprises me, I'll start there first, even though I know you didn't ask, is really on the supply chain. So if we look at our industry colleagues in the manufacturing space, they're all looking at easy business cases for updating their supply chain, and it's kind of like a no-brainer at this point. It's already been proven, so it's not like you're the first pioneer, and it's simple, and you can use the tech stack that we have now to really change things. And in pharma, there's even a bigger issue, which is counterfeit drugs or the black market, where you're selling drugs outside of the pharmacy. And so really to have a secure supply chain actually is even more important to pharma, and yet they're not thinking in that space. When I talk to them, they look at me with dead eyes sometimes, and maybe it's just the people I'm talking to, but that's something that surprises me. But where they are thinking is really on the connected patient engagement side, whether it's through part of your treatment, so driving up your adherence and making sure that they're using portals to interact with patients that are connected with their wearable devices so they can see trends and see how what they're doing is actually affecting their treatment in real time. I think that's a really powerful way to keep them adherent. So that's one cool thing. And the other cool thing is keeping them connected throughout the trial. So same idea where they're using their sensors that they've been given or the data, and then they're able to interact with it in meaningful ways throughout the trial to keep them engaged, keep them adherent. So again, it's kind of like the first generation of using the simple, lower risk technology now, but I think that'll go farther and it'll be more advanced to Dave, like you mentioned, kind of that remote sensor self-diagnostic mode as we progress and as we get a little bit more adventurous and a little bit more confident in the technology.
Well, welcome. If you're watching Coffee with Mr. IoT. My name is Schmid. We're doing a weekly show for Deloitte. And today my guests are Rachel Mohrmann and Dave Rosner, and we're talking specifically about IoT in healthcare. So Dave, one of the things we've done is we've created what we call Patient 360. I've mentioned this before. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and why we've done it and what your thoughts are around it, and then Rachel can also fill in after that.
Sure. So within the life sciences industry, so the pharmaceutical manufacturers, the medical device companies, historically, they have not managed relationships with patients that are on their therapies. Typically, the relationship is between a patient and a doctor, or a patient and a clinic or an institution. And more, our clients in the pharmaceutical medtech industry are finding ways to add value, to add utility to the therapy through engagement directly with the patients. Some of the really common ways of engaging with patients or supporting them can be as simple as helping them get through the insurance process. So, for high-cost chronic type therapies, there's a long, arduous process that you got to go through to get prior authorization with your insurance company, and pharmaceutical companies that play in this space are very well, very mature at helping patients do that. And that's just an example of low-hanging fruit. On the other end of the spectrum, you might have cases where the therapy itself, the diagnostic tool or the pharmaceutical itself is just one part of solving for the broader problem, healthcare problem. And the pharmaceutical and medical device companies are finding ways that they can add value to the care and the coordination of the patient itself. So that could be as simple as helping them schedule clinics or lab tests. It could be getting them directions to infusion centers. It could be sending nurses to their home and teaching them how to use an injection for the first time and to do that for themselves going forward. And then, even broader, you have companies that are looking at what are ways that we can support the care going forward. So multiple sclerosis, is one area where the drug manufacturers are very mature in supporting their patients that are using their products, helping them through the care of multiple sclerosis. And across all of this, you have digital solutions, you have consumer type solutions, you have personal interactions with care coordinators, and there's a lot of back and forth. And what is missing for those companies is really a way to manage those relationships with the patient any way you would manage a relationship with a customer in any other industry. So what we've done is we've seen the need in the market. We've created a solution called Patient Connect, and at its simplest, it's really just a way for companies to manage and maintain and engage with patients across the life cycle. And it can be as early as these are patients that are enrolled in clinical trials, and it can be as far along the process as mature products towards end of life, and a way to engage them in different ways. So we've had a lot of success, helping our clients who see a need to engage with patients more, but didn't have the capability to manage those in a central place and to see all the interactions and to coordinate them, in a sophisticated way. So simply put, Patient Connect is really our patient CRM platform that it's currently being used by several pharma and medical device companies.
And then to add on that, what Patient 360, what our lab experience has done is taken Patient Connect, what Dave mentioned, and we've really built in all of the sensors that we would see in a Patient 360 holistic care for one disease state. So we focused on diabetes just to start because it's so prevalent in our industry. It's one of the largest chronic, highest cost disease states in our country right now. So we took that and we said, okay, what are all the sensors that would be enabled throughout that patient care? Anything from a continuous glucose monitor to a pill reminder box to a basic wearable that has your vital tracking, to even like a blood pressure cuff, and basically kind of taking a sampling of all the tools in the industry. We didn't play with all of them, but we got a good sense by taking a sampling across. How do we bring all that data together? But how do we bring it together in meaningful ways as well? So what does that data do to then enable the ecosystem around that patient, whether it's the provider, as Dave mentioned, where we can show insights based on specific patients for like a nurse or an RN that's responsible for a patient, or maybe an HCP, a doctor, who needs to see aggregate trends based on a certain type of patient. So what kind of activities really impact their care and their treatment and their outcomes. And then even going further in that ecosystem to the plan. So from a reimbursement side, where are the treatments driving the best outcomes, and how can you financially incentivize those treatments above others? So value-based care and kind of going down that road as well. And then even working around that entire ecosystem where you're looking at the patient's Connect network, so their family or their friends that can help see where they're at and help them exercise if they're seeing that's going to inspire their treatment. And how do you take all that data with their vitals and bring meaningful insights to them? And that's really, I think, where it gets fascinating and cool, because before this world of life sciences healthcare has been completely siloed, and now we're looking at it in a holistic view. How can we really bring the best care together? And that's what Deloitte's done in this lab, is to kind of show what are the possibilities if we bring everything together just for this one specific disease state. So pretty soon, I think we're still working on our official launch date, but we'll be inviting clients to actually come and take part of this and leverage it as a way to brainstorm and innovate and kind of see what's out there and what's possible for them. And we're really excited about what's going to come out of it based on those sessions as well.
I have to say the thing that fascinates me and the thing I like the most is that it's patient 360, which puts a patient in the middle of everything rather than it really puts the power back to me as a patient. It really feels like I am the center again rather than the insurance company that covers me. They're all important. It has all these aspects in it. But at the end of the day, I'm in the center, and that makes me feel empowered, and it makes me feel good. We're about 20 minutes in. I'd like to kind of ask you guys to do a bit of crystal ball looking, and I'm going to ask you some questions that are a bit out there. Rachel, you talked about how we put wearables in there. I have this feeling, and I'm curious if you see this too, but I remember a few years ago there was a lot of talk about the consumerization of IT, and I'm wondering if we are seeing a consumerization of healthcare. And why I say that is because wearables, Fitbits, all these devices that you can get now, there is a lot of stuff out there. And I hear this consistently that these devices aren't accurate enough, these devices aren't good enough, they are not HIPAA approved. There's a lot of regulations that aren't met with these devices, yet people start living their lives according to it. So are we seeing a consumerization of healthcare, or is this just my imagination?
You're spot on, sir. So what's really cool is no patient gives a crap about the regulations. If you've got a disease state and you want to take control of it, you're going to do whatever you think, and maybe you're not always right, and maybe your device isn't as accurate as the hospital setting, but when you see yourself feel better or your disease state improve based on the actions you're taking as you take in control, no one cares. No one cares at all. So what's happening, and we just asked an audience the other day, you know, who's gone on and used those self-diagnostic tools, whether it's WebMD, one of the first, or the 10,000 websites that are out there now that enable you to be able to really take care of your personal health and drive better outcomes. Whether it's the basic, you know, the little sensor you can put on your shoulder so you don't slouch, so you don't have as much back pain, to even the cool like neuroscience ones where they're actually using wearable devices that you can put right on your head and activate relaxation and pain-releasing senses in your brain so you can be drug-free. So for people with chronic pain, it's something that's, you know, they're not waiting for it to go through trial. They're not using it as a reimbursed insurance-provided treatment, but they don't want to be on the drugs necessarily, and they're looking for alternative ways to take control of it, and they know that they're not a general public. They know that they're individual, and what works for the individual may not work for the general public, and so they're taking control, and I think that's where it gets absolutely fascinating, and it's only a matter of time before it comes from commercial driving the innovation in the big pharma, in the big med device, because they'll see that that's much needed and patients want it.
Dave, is this scary for our clients, and what do they think about this?
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word scary. I would say our clients are thinking about, and in some cases struggling with, what role do they play. You know, and even in the last week, I've met with, you know, 2 top 10 pharmaceutical companies and the people that, you know, are responsible for digital, actually 3, and more they're asking the question, you know, what should we be doing? Like, are we best positioned to be a consumer type company, or should we continue down what is our core competency, and what's the line that we should play and what the line we shouldn't cross? So, you know, some of them are thinking, well, gee, you know, there's, you know, a lot of venture capital money and investments going to drive innovation through startups, and, you know, are we really going to be able to compete with an ecosystem like that? On the other hand, I have a different client, you know, that's saying, I am standing up 40 people to sit in Silicon Valley in a lab to figure out what we need to do in this space and to drive pilots and innovation. So no one is scared. I think they are all trying to figure out where they want to play and why. And it's not a universal, you know, they all need to play in the same way. I think some companies are going to, and it depends on the therapies and their culture and a little bit about their corporate strategy. they're not all going to dig into this, and some will let the the ecosystem solve for it, and they will continue to play a role of innovating around their technology, which is medicines and devices. And then there will be others that are going to play more of a role in solution within healthcare, and that'll more and more include some of these things that go beyond just compounds and devices. So, I think that's really what's going on right now.
Yeah, and I second that, Dave. I think with this new technology, it's scary in that we're figuring it out. It's not a documented journey or a documented path, but it's exciting too. We're figuring out there's new markets and new ways to do treatments, and it opens up an endless opportunity. Which, hey, if I'm in the business, that means a new market share, a new growth. That's exciting. So I think a lot of our clients are jumping on that and seeing that opportunity, and I think that's where we get excited to help, because that's where you're not losing market share, you're not risking anything, but you're saying, how can I do this different and even grow farther? So that's where it gets a lot of fun.
Yep.
So Rachel, I'm going to take this as your closing argument. Exciting times. I love that. Dave, any closing comments before we check out here?
No, I'll just pile on a little bit. I mean, I think it is exciting times. I don't think any one company or companies are going to do it. I think it's going to be an ecosystem of players across healthcare, which is exciting and something that really hasn't historically happened before. So, I think whenever we talk IoT and this whole area, I mean, it just brings the consumer domain with the enterprise domain together, and all the different companies across healthcare are going to have to play well. And I think that's probably what's most exciting to me.
Well, as always with IoT, we talk about ecosystems. You guys are part of my ecosystem. I really appreciate you being on here with me. Thank you. This is the end of Coffee with Mr. IoT. My name is Robert Schmid, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week, Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. And I will be back in the U.S. Unfortunately, I'm going to leave Sicily tomorrow. And thank you all for joining us. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Robert. Safe travels.